Hi there, my name's Scott McDonald, and in today's video I'm going to do a 1-hour challenge in which I try to learn a new, terrifying skill in 60 minutes or less. In this challenge, I wanted to take my inward vampire, which usually catches in a hand plant against the face of the wall, and instead catch in a handstand on the corner before dropping back in. This requires much more precision and is also just infinitely scarier than going to the face, so you'll have to wait till the end to see whether or not I succeeded, but either way, I hope you enjoy watching the process. Now, I really wasn't sure what to expect from this trick, so to stay safe, I covered the corner of a short wall with a panel mat and just started with a fairly timid drop-in and backward return. My main goal was just to feel out the trick and hopefully get at least one hand to touch the corner, so while everything else clearly needed work, this still felt like a pretty decent first try. On my next attempt, I managed to get both hands down, so at this point I figured the best plan would be to try and catch hands then feet, and gradually start extending more and more towards a handstand. As it turns out, that only took a handful of tries, so I decided to remove the panel mat and start working on the trick under slightly scarier conditions, and to my very pleasant surprise, my first matless attempt went straight to the corner. This had me feeling really confident, considering I had only been working on it for a few minutes, but what I failed to consider was that just passing through a handstand is not exactly the same thing as controlling the catch and being able to drop back in. For the next 15 attempts in a row, I consistently overshot the handstand, and that gave me a harsh reality check. If I was going to make this work, I would need to catch in an arch, with my hips hanging out over the abyss, just like the catch for a normal vampire or a pullover to handstand. Even at the best of times, this position feels pretty vulnerable, but with an inward vampire it's even worse because I can't see the corner until the moment my hands make contact. Upon realizing this, I began to overthink the trick, and my attempts got really inconsistent and squirrely. After a few minutes of this, I realized the best thing to do might be to reset my brain by giving myself a small change of scenery, so I moved over to the other side of the tramp wall. Over here, I had a few iffy attempts, but with time I kept drilling and began to make some pretty good progress. After about half an hour of training, I began to feel fatigued. I had done over 50 attempts so far, and every single one of them was blind, unpredictable, and uniquely scary. My initial confidence was gone, and as I got increasingly tired, I started to mess up in new ways. That said, I felt like I was just one happy accident away from making the trick work, so I decided to just push through and keep going. I'm really glad I did, because a few minutes later, I finally caught in the correct handstand shape, with my legs and hips trailing behind me. It just happened to be on top of the ledge instead of right against the corner. I knew that if I could travel slightly less and catch in this same position, the challenge would be over, so I kept trying for the next 15 minutes, kept getting inconsistent results, and after 45 total minutes I had done just under 100 attempts. My body, brain, and especially my adrenal glands were all getting very worn out, and with only 15 minutes left on the clock, something unexpected and kinda horrifying happened. I dropped in a little closer than I was used to, and as I left the bed, it felt like I was going straight up and down and probably wasn't going to make it back to the wall at all. When things like this happen in a trick, adrenaline tends to dilate your perception of time, so this fraction of a second felt like an eternity. I braced myself for impact, thinking I was about to run teeth first into the corner and then drop onto the frame, but to my very pleasant surprise, instead, I found myself catching directly on the corner in a handstand. As it turns out, to get the proper catch angle, you basically have to go straight up and down. Now that I had finally felt the correct placement, I just turned off my thoughts, replicated it, committed to catching with my legs extended out over the abyss, and dropped back in. I didn't really think about what would come next, so I just defaulted to a pullover, but after 104 attempts, I was so relieved to have finally completed the challenge. So yeah, this was by far the hardest 1-hour challenge I've done so far from both a physical and mental standpoint. I hope this was fun to watch, but more importantly, I hope that anyone who's trying to learn new skills and just sees effortless looking final products on social media, sees this and understands actually there's a lot of work that goes into these things behind the scenes. If you have any scary tricks that you're working on, please let me know all about them in the comments below, and until next time, good luck and happy training.